Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So today we're going to talk about modeling amps. Are they really any good? Well, it's a matter of opinion, right? Everybody's got one. And so do I, because I own two of them. Mind you, they are both exactly the same amp. They're both Fender Mustang 1 V2s, newest generation. And, well, here's the story. They're okay. They're great for beginner guitar players because it gives the beginner a chance to have a bunch of different sound effects and stuff without having to put out for an amp, a guitar, and a whack load of pedals, right? And so getting a modeling amp initially is great for a beginner, right? Now, I picked these up because I needed an amp, period, and I had a very small budget. So, and I didn't have the patience to wait until I could save up, $600 or $700 or $800 for what I really wanted. But I'll just wait it out. In the meantime, I got the Fender Mustang 1 amp, and I've learned how to program it really quickly through the Fender Fuse program, and it's a very friendly amp that way. So you hook it up with a USB cable that comes with it, and it actually worked with GarageBand. See, when you're in the Fender Fuse program, your amp has to be on no matter what anyways, right? No matter what program you're in, your amp does have to be on. In Fender Fuse, you program the amp settings. You have eight different modeling amps, and of course you can change cabs like 2x12, 1x12, 8-inch speakers, 4x12s, whatever. You can change different cabs with different amps and so on. So you can do a lot of, and you can get into some really nitty-gritty features too of these amps and really go out to town with them. And you can create some really clean tones with a couple of the amps, and the other ones not so much. So you got a couple amps at least you can make some good clean tones on. And you're going to need some clean channel even as a beginner, but even if you're an advanced player like I am and you want clean, you're going to have to program that clean in there. And right now I'm using the 65 Twin Reverb selection amp, and I've got a program set up. I can't remember what cab I've got with it, but it's as clean as going to get out of all the clean ones I've managed to clean up. It's about the cleanest, and it's still not perfect, but my mixing board does help make things even a little bit more enhanced on the clean side, because I get a lot of control on my mixing board, which is great. And I run both of these amps through my mixer with my microphone, my guitar, my pedals, blah blah blah. Now I also have a NuX Loop Core pedal, which has a rhythm machine built in it with 40 different availabilities to different rhythms and stuff, and I can change the timing on them and speeds, blah blah blah. Anyway, so the rhythm machine, when you're using it with a modeling amp, you must have, well, even on a regular amp, you must be running the amp clean in order to keep that rhythm machine, whether it's a loop pedal with one in it, or whether it's a separate just rhythm only, like a Beat Buddy or whatever, any kind of drum machine, you have to run it clean into the amp. Otherwise, if you distort the signal of the amp, especially the modeling amps, but even a saturation level on a regular amp, you will distort the drums, and it'll sound like absolute crap. Okay, and it'll also break up your playing to the point where it's like just disgusting. So you do require programming a clean channel, as clean as you can possibly get it, whether you're using a Fender amp, a Marshall amp that's a modeling amp, or a Line 6, whatever, you gotta run it clean. Now, the drawback to this, of course, is how do you get dirty sound now? Well, if you have a mixing board like I do, you can have effects racks hooked in for different types of effects, or you can run pedals. You can buy pedals. I also have a built-in effect rack built right into the mixing board, so I can get distortion, I can get a phaser, a flanger, I can get different reverbs and echoes and all that stuff, and I can assign the effect to whatever channel I want to have that on there. Now, the drawback, of course, of having my NuX pedal down below is now my guitar goes through all of that and into the board, so it's all running off one channel now. So now I can't run an alternate, right? So I'm going to have to take my loop core pedal off, put it up top again on its own channel, and then I can turn off the effects from the mixer, use the effects on the mixer for the guitar, or I can use my pedals. Either way, I've got all my bases covered, where a lot of you guys won't. Okay, so if you want to run a drum machine, amp has to be clean setting, and you're going to have to use pedals if you want distortion and stuff, and then you're okay. So a modeling amp at that point now becomes a useless machine, because now you want to do all this. Well, now your modeling amp's kind of useless to you, because now you can't use any of the effects in there if you're going to have a rhythm machine with it. So that part sucks. So yeah, personally, I prefer a straight, clean amp. Okay, like a solid state amp. Don't even talk to me about valve amps. Okay, to me they're nothing but money pits. You're always buying valves because they're burning out. Blah blah blah. Okay, they're okay. They are a clean source, but I mean, you got warm up time. They suck more hydro. There's a lot of drawbacks to valve amps, but there's a lot of good points to them as well. I like solid state. It instantly fires up. I don't have to be that careful with it for transportation, where a valve amp you do, and the list goes on. So anyways, a regular solid state amp is going to be more clean than any modeling amp out there. Okay, you can take a $900 Marshall modeling amp, and I can take a $150 solid state amp that has just dirty and clean, and my clean power is going to be way cleaner than that Marshall amp can ever pull off, because I don't have the computer in there stealing power from me, and I'm getting access to about 80% of my wattage output in a normal amp, whereas any modeling amp you're only getting you're only going to be able to access maybe about 60% of that amp before it breaks up and starts to sound like crap even on a clean channel, no matter what the wattage level is. Okay, and that's just the way it goes, because computers steal power. Okay, and modeling amps are computerized amps. So this bodes to I'm chewing up 70 watts of hydro. I'm getting 20 watts of sound max out of my output for my amp, but I only get to use about maybe 13 to 15 watts out of that usable power before it's going to break up and sound like shit. But see, this is the thing too, guys, is even in a solid state amp, you're not getting 100% of that amp. Okay, even in a valve amp, you're not getting 100%. Every amplifier will clip, regardless of wattage, at a specific area on the dial. Some amps will clip sooner, some will clip later. Now what clipping is the breakup of that clean signal starts to break up, and it starts to overdrive a little bit naturally. That's when you're pushing your volume levels too loud, and that's where it's going to start sounding like crap, especially if you're trying to play a song with clean sound. Okay, a lot of people do not understand this, and a lot of people also do not understand the whole wattage game. Okay, same thing as there are a lot of people out there say, well, you need at least 100 watts to get over top of a drummer. Bull. I've done it with 7.5 watts on a PV Edition 20 back in the 80s. Okay, and our drummer had an acoustic kit, a big one, and he was obnoxious. And between me and the lead guitarist, we both had these Edition 20 amps that put out 7.5 watts each. Now, mind you, we had to crank them up loud, but we still got over top of that drummer to the point where we needed to for our practice area, and in smaller areas that we were going to play in, we didn't have a big problem with that. Okay, PVs I think are really underrated. I think that 7.5 watts was more like about 20 or 30 watts. They're just obnoxiously loud amps. I even have a little PV backstage amp over here in the corner that I just picked up recently, and it's 10 watts. Okay, and at that, I mean, and it's just straight clean or overdrive. You know, if you want to stay clean, you stay clean. If you want to overdrive, push the button. You know, and the clean signal stays clean for quite a piece before it starts to break up, and it gets really loud in this room. Even in the main part of the house, it's really loud. All right, like any video I can do for you guys, you will never get the full potential of how loud this thing is on video, because of the way compression with the video files works and all that other stuff, right? And the way mics pick stuff up. But trust me, it's friggin' loud. So 10 watts is really super loud. And that's with a 6.5-inch speaker. We were running 8-inch speakers in the Edition 20s at 7.5 watts maximum output. Okay, and we were probably getting about 5 watts of that juice at most, but it was getting broken up too because we were definitely into the clipping range. But we weren't playing clean tones hardly anyways. We were mostly distorted or overdriven, and we had pedals and all that other jazz. So we really pushed those amps for all they were worth, and we never did harm an amp. Now that brings to the next problem of modeling amps of the bad side. Even the more expensive ones out there, when you start cranking them, unless they have a really good cooling system in them, you're going to start cooking amps. And I've seen a few of the Line 6s, especially the one I've been looking at recently that's for sale. And now I'm kind of, might be thinking about not going after it so much now. It's a 150 watt Line 6 head, Spider 2. And I'm seeing that there's some issues with those. And it can get to be an expensive repair should you run into the problem. And you will if you start pushing that amp too hard. And so these modeling amps, bottom line, are useless for any kind of real gigging experience. Okay, now I've used my Fenders at church on a clean channel, and I've had it loud enough that people can hear me and stuff fine, and I'm not breaking up. And I managed to get over the drummer without too much difficulty, playing a distorted tone, but I wouldn't be pushing it too much harder, you know, because I would probably end up starting to overheat, but I don't know. I haven't heard any issues with the Mustang amps, so that's at least reassuring. But the Line 6s, I'm hearing any Line 6 amp. I was on YouTube all day looking at Line 6 amps, investigating a bunch of them. And I've tried a few at the music store, and I really didn't like the sound of them anyways to begin with. You know, the Fender actually sounded better and was cheaper than even the cheapest Line 6 amp in the store. And I was like, wow, and I can hook my Fender Mustang into my computer with a USB cable. Line 6 won't do it. You know, and even a lot of the other Line 6s will not hook into a computer with USB porting. I think there may be some Line 6s out now that might, but I won't swear to that. But the thing is you know, there's good and bad in every product line. You know, Marshall's got good stuff and they got crap. You know, Fender's same way. They got some good stuff, they got crap. You know, and it's not a matter of you get what you pay for either. It's a matter of your taste as well. You know, I mean, you don't have to spend $1,000 to get an awesome sounding amplifier. It's what does it sound awesome to you? Does it play well? Would you take that into the studio? Would you take it live on stage? You know, push that amp a bit. You know, see how it does. See how well it stays clean. You know, and the problem with amp heads is now you've got a whole shit can load of different cabs out there by Orange, Marshall, Behringer, and all kinds of companies. So you're never going to use Line 6 with Line 6 or Marshall with Marshall. Well, you might use Marshall with Marshall if you're a diehard Marshall freak. But certainly you will more than likely not be using the same brand of cabinet, speaker cab, with your Line 6 amp, for example. Or maybe you might not use it with your Marshall. Maybe you don't like Marshall cabs. Maybe you prefer, I don't know, PV or whoever, right? But you do have to get a cab that's going to sound the way you're expecting that thing to sound. And with a modeling amp or a regular solid state amp or even a valve amp, the more wattage you have available, the more wattage you can afford to purchase, the better it's going to be in the long haul, because you can go to higher volumes and stay clean on your clean channel, and your dirty channel will sound good dirty, not shit dirty. Okay, and that's the thing. You know, the PV Viper series, they got some nice stuff, but they've been having a lot of problems with the Vipers in a lot of their models. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm a diehard PV guy down to the heart, but I like the older PV stuff. You know, the older PV stuff is the good stuff, Kind of like if you ask anybody about Fender, they're going to tell you, wow, the new Fender stuff is shit. The old Fender stuff's the best. You know, everybody has their opinion, their ideas and thoughts on it, and that's great. My theory is the best solid state amp is one that has no computerized crap in it. Okay, so just a straight clean amp with a saturation feature, that's fine. That is going to be way better sounding than anything that's a modeling amp. Okay, the deal is I got to buy pedals for that amp. Who cares? I had to buy pedals for these Mustangs because the Mustang, the software is limited to what I can do with it, right? And so I have to have pedals anyhow. And I'm running a rhythm machine now, so I have to run my amps clean, because as soon as I try running a dirty channel of any kind on my amp with that drum machine running, it affects my drum machine, because my drum machine runs through both my amps, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? So are modeling amps really that good in the end? Well, not so much for a guy like me, but you know what? I do like these. They do work well. And for how I've got them set up, they're great. I'm happy with it. But I still do want some other amplifiers, because I do want a more portable one that's more to my liking for playing at church with from time to time. Plus, I do plug into the sound system anyway. I'm also looking at the Boss Katana. I'd like to get one of those, and a few other amps too that I'd like to get. And I'd like to start collecting some of the old amps, But like I said, I'm a solid state guy. You're not going to get me onto tubes unless you give it to me. Then I'll give it an honest go for a while, and then I'll give you an opinion, and I'm not going to say I don't like it just because, but, the thing is I will not go out and purchase a valve amp. It's just, I can't afford the price of the amps to begin with, and then the upkeep on the tubes, as I need them. It's like, man, this kind of really sucks. Solid state, 30 years from now I can turn the damn switch on and the thing works fine, as long as I don't, blow the speaker. And if I do, who cares? I put a new speaker in it, it's back to running just like new again. I've lost nothing, so it owes me nothing at that point. Maintenance free, right? But yes, modeling amps do have a lot of drawbacks. You sacrifice clean sound to a certain point. It's not going to be as clean as a regular plain Jane solid state amp. And of course, you do have other barriers that are in your way with modeling amps too. And the simple fact that I'm seeing a lot of these modeling amps from different companies having a lot of issues really bothers me, because the more computerized crap you get in them, the more shit that's going to go wrong. It's kind of like cars, the more crap they put in them for bells and whistles and toys because we want them. Well, just because you can do something doesn't mean it's a very good idea. But hey, public wants, public gets, and then they learn their lesson when shit goes wrong and they get really big ass repair bills, right? So that's the same way with amplifiers. The more crap you want in it, yeah, they'll make the stuff, and it'll come with a price tag attached, and it'll come with a shitload of problems too at the same time, and you go from there. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about modeling amps versus the regular amps versus the valve amps? Now, I didn't talk really much about valve amps other than my basic opinion on them. But I do think there's a place for modeling amps. For me, it was about my budget, and I needed to get back into amps and pedals again. And the Mustang fit the bill, and glad I got it because I found another one used on Kijiji for $60. Picked it up, and it was like cherry. I had to reset the firmware, and it straightened it out. So, that was like, whew, that was good. I was glad I only paid $60, but I got a hell of a deal in the end, right? And because you never know what's wrong with this stuff, right? That's the thing. And but I mean, for what I use it for, it's perfect. It's perfect for my studio setup. Couldn't have asked for better, and it didn't cost me a ton of money. Because I just don't have a ton, right? So hey, work with what I got. Anyway, guys, catch you in the next video.